It's funny because nobody ever really sits you down and goes, this is the thing that nobody's ever going to tell you.
There's a certain point where you go from a hobbyist to a professional.
There's a combination of acquiring the clothes, and there's definitely a combination of making and designing your own costumes.
The location scout is one of the first people on a project.
When you are writing, find the things to write that you feel like you can write better than anyone else.
A space where people can come together, where they can take their different interests, their different disciplines, their different backgrounds, and cross-pollinate and create something. It is a space where we can convert on that idea.
Hello, and welcome once again to No Backstage, where we learn about all avenues available to us in the arts and entertainment industry. Today's episode will feature a discussion between industry veterans Ryann Liebl and Wes Tank. Ryann is a filmmaker, writer, producer, director, and actress who was born and raised in Wisconsin and cut her chops in Los Angeles. Her new production company, REL Films, launched in 2019 and already has a feature film distributed, Megs and Julie Go on a Road Trip. Ryann is passionate about helping fellow artists and creating content that is uplifting, educational, and poignant. Wes is a Milwaukee artist who combines his passion for film, music, and literature with a dedication to strengthening community ecosystems. Through his media company, Tank Think, he collaborates with local organizations and artists to marry the arts with community efforts in order to promote health, education, and social justice. You may know Wes from his mashup performances of Dr. Seuss books rapped against beats by Dr. Dre, which went viral online not long ago. Ryann and Wes, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi.
How's it going?
Good. So for our audience, so they know, we have a bit of a delay when we're talking to each other. So we're going to try to be mindful of that and keep everything succinct so we can actually hear what the other person's saying. So I'm going to start out with a question for Wes. And of course, any of you guys that are watching, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those questions. Wes is the one who's going to bring them up. And then we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. But I wanted to ask Wes the first question. So the first question is, it's on my phone, is Wes, what has it been like to do the Dr. Seuss, Dr. Dre videos and have it become so successful?
Sure. Well, first, just thanks everybody for tuning in and stuff. And thanks, Ryan, for asking me to do this, and No Studios and everyone. And I don't know if it was clear from that intro, but the reason that we are in this together is because I'm in Ryan's movie. So we'll get more into that later, but just wanted to make that clear. So right now I've been talking a lot about these Dr. Seuss videos because it was something that sort of started during quarantine. Right around the beginning of that, I had moved from doing a lot of work out in the community to kind of being forced to make something happen inside of my house when a lot of the projects I was doing got kind of put on pause. So these Dr. Seuss songs were something that I had been performing for a while at shows and stuff, but had never done recordings of them. So I figured I'd do that, and then I thought, well, why don't I make videos of it while I'm recording songs and throw it on YouTube and just have it kind of as an archival place for that. Well, lo and behold, someone posted it to Reddit, and it did really well on Reddit for some reason. It just sort of shot up upvotes on Reddit, and suddenly we were trending on YouTube, and we were number 7 trending on YouTube at one point on the front page, and started getting all this national and international press about it. I think partly because it was just like, here's some good news right now when there was a ton of bad news happening all over the world. And it was just here's something, fun and silly that can make you laugh, and you can put in front of your kids and they'll enjoy it. So it was a lot of navigation over this past summer, with a lot of people in the industry coming to me. Had a lot of managers and different types of companies coming to me, and I was like, oh, I had been happy just kind of making videos about neighborhoods and stuff like that, and I still do that, but it was kind of a different type of thing with the entertainment industry sort of coming to me. I didn't even have to leave my house, and suddenly I'm doing interviews with Oprah Magazine and Variety Magazine and all of these places. So and I feel like I'm a little bit of a rookie in the entertainment industry, and we were referred to as veterans in the intro. So I think that maybe that describes you a little more, Ryann. And I was gonna ask you to tell me about your experience in the entertainment industry. I know you spent maybe like 20 years in Los Angeles. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What
right.
What was that like?
Yeah. Being a Wisconsinite, I came from an environment where everybody was pretty genuine and friendly. And then I was sort of shoved into an environment that was really competitive. And a little bit about who do you know? So I think for me, it was, I was very green. I didn't know anything about the industry. So it was sort of shocking. But at the same time, I was very motivated and excited. So I don't know. I made things work by being determined to make them work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Did you, when you were out there, were you acting in a lot of stuff? Did you have an agent? What was your experience like, kind of trying to move within the world out there?
I mean, I did what a lot of young artists do, where they move to New York or they move to LA. I went to school there. I went to USC. And so I was there really for school, right? But my second year into school, kind of like what happened to you, you're explaining with your videos, I went to a script reading, and it was at Jason Schwartzman's house, who I had known from Rushmore, but I didn't know anybody else there. And there was a manager who was sitting next to me, and he was this fun older guy who was very humorous. And I did a bunch of parts in this script that Jason Schwartzman's brothers had written. And that next day, I got a call from that guy who had been sitting next to me, who happened to be a manager. And he said, I really like you. I think you're really funny and talented, and I want to sign you. And I didn't know what that meant. But that's what sort of started the journey. So I was still at school. I was still at USC when I started to audition and get to know people within the industry.
Wow. That's cool. So did you get to meet Jason Schwartzman?
Yes, I did. Yes. And he's very funny. He's very quirky. He's also a very talented musician. He plays piano and he sings, so
I miss you going on down to the West Coast. You know that one?
Yeah,
it's a great song.
So Yeah, he's part of the Coppola family. So it was a little,
right.
When I was at the script reading, I was like, where am I? What am I doing? I was in this huge mansion in Bel Air, and I was like, okay, what are we doing? So I had a lot of experiences like that, where I was like thrown into the world of LA and Hollywood. And I didn't, half the time I was just making stuff up as I went along,
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. So did that reading go anywhere?
No, I don't think they ever made that movie. But it was a very funny script, and it got me a manager. So that was
got
worth
you a
it.
manager. So it went there. Interesting. Yeah. That was something that having a manager is something that's new to me. I was able to get connected with somebody and during this process, and that has helped me to be able to navigate the industry a lot easier, because I'm with you, where I'm kind of more used to talking to people from the Midwest and some of the people can seem kind of sharky out there. So it was nice to have somebody that like that I could talk to, but also knows the language and like what to ask for and what not to ask for and what to do. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I have another question for you, Wes.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have questions yet? No. No questions. Okay. Mm-hmm. The next question is, so how have you found, because from your Dr. Seuss, Dr. Dre raps, which a lot of people know about now. I mean, I even had friends post your videos on their social media, and I was saying to them, that's Wes, that's the guy who's in my movie. And they were like, oh my God. But so I'm interested, like, so you took that concept and there was a lot of success with it, and you got a manager, right? And then you mm-hmm. were able to transition that into a show, right? So how did you get that together? What was that like to create the content for the new show? How did you get people involved? Who's working with you on it? All of that kind of thing. Because this comes to my question mm-hmm. about production, which I'm sure some people are interested in, is that, we're in the business of making content, right? That can be sold, right? So I'm curious mm-hmm. about taking something that was successful and then moving it into an actual online show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So like by the time I got the manager, I had already been working with my producing partners, Kurt Ravenwood, sorry, and Ryan Sarnowski. And we were already bouncing a lot of ideas around and kind of like thinking like, okay, can we do other stuff? At the time, we were just doing stuff for YouTube and kind of looking at YouTube to throw spaghetti at the wall. And we branched out of Seuss a little bit. We did a video for Goodnight Moon to kind of like expand, like, oh, we can try this with other authors, and we're still doing that somewhat. But in the middle of all this, this children's streamer called Cadoodle TV reached out, and they were like, we want to do some original content with you based on your Dr. Seuss videos. But, we want you to do, kind of your own originals based off of content from the public domain. So something that has like recognizable aspects to it, but has your own flair put on it. So I rewrote the Three Little Bears, the Three Little Pigs, We did one with all of these different nursery rhymes based around time that we called time rhymes. And we did the Casey at bat, except made it Wesley at the bat. So there's a lot of interesting things. We went from basically where I was wrapping books that were pre-written, obviously, with illustrations, and all I had to do was animate the illustrations. But now I had to come up with a new song, a new book, and a new video, like for around 3 times a month or so. And so we had to put together a team, and the illustrator that we went with is named Carol Brandt, and she's pretty well known as a filmmaker here in Milwaukee. She's done several feature films on the indie circuit, and but she also is lesser known as a really talented illustrator. And she's the person that's done all the drawings for these. And then our producer Kurt's wife Lydia does the layouts for the book designs. We essentially wanted to recreate the feeling of a children's book. So rather than doing like super elaborate animations or something like that, which we could have done, we just wanted to recreate, like, here's this children's book, and we're just going to do kind of reading rainbow panning over the across images and stuff. So and I'm holding a book in the show. It's like we want to promote reading, and eventually we want to publish all of these stories that we're doing into a book. It's just that obviously takes time, and we're still writing them. Right. Yeah.
I think it's cool too. You're talking about Reading Rainbow. When I was growing up, Reading Rainbow was around, and that was one of my favorite shows. And I'm a big reader. I love reading. I still inhale novels and fiction and science fiction. But I loved Reading Rainbow. I loved it. And I feel like kids don't read enough nowadays at all. Like even my son, I have to like encourage him to read because everybody's on screens all the time. And I'm really worried about that. I feel like reading is the thing that sort of opens up the world for people. It makes them understand each other. It makes them have empathy for each other. It gives them a sense of history. It tells them what a future could be if things don't go right. So I think it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing. I think it's really needed.
Thanks. Yeah, it's reading and literacy and the arts and stuff is all really important to me. And I think that like there's a lot of competition with screens. There's a lot of people trying to pull kids' attention and stuff. And when we kind of looked into Cadoodle and what they were all about, they're all about, creating a really safe environment for kids to be able to watch stuff that is, not only entertaining, but also educational and also like very safe. They're not going to go down any rabbit holes and stuff. So I was like, this is a really good company to partner with. And, and we were also their first original content. Normally they will license stuff from YouTube and other places. So this was their first original show. And so it was cool to be a part of that launch. And but that's been a lot of learning, and kind of getting it's different when you're doing stuff for YouTube and you're kind of just in the driver's seat all the time with it. There's a little bit of a letting go that has to happen. And there's real deadlines. It's like a real job. You're producing content continually too. It's like we really haven't had a break, since July. It's been fun,
I'm
though.
super
it's like
impressed.
the best job I've ever had.
Yeah, it's amazing too that you're knocking out 3. You said 3 a month, right? Is that what
Yeah,
you said?
it's really
a
I
lot.
did. That's what we technically are supposed to do, but we really end up just doing one a week, and we're trying to get ahead of our schedule, so we don't really take a week off, even though we probably should sometimes.
It
We'll
sounds
get
like
there.
my movie.
Yeah.
Like the movie, we did 18 days of shooting straight. We had 1 day off and then a half day. And we were all like,
Wow.
we're going to die.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, what was it like? I guess the question I had for you was more about the writing process, but if you want to talk about the filming process, go for it.
Well, I mean, what should we talk about? What do you think people would be interested in?
I don't know. Let's check the chat, see if anybody's. Oh, somebody. Oh, there's been a couple questions here. Okay.
Okay, good.
Well, they said the first question is, what is the start of your creative process? So that ties into writing. Is writing down? Is it writing down the concept, talking about it out loud, outlining, or just starting it? I will put that to you, Ryan.
Okay. Okay. Well, for me, I get ideas or concepts for movies. Sometimes it comes as an idea in my head, like a scene that I see. Sometimes it's visual, and sometimes it's a theme that I want to write about. And that usually comes about from interacting with other people and talking to them and just being out in life and experiencing life in general. I'm the kind of person where I like people and I like people's stories. And there's this book that I read about 15 years ago called Save the Cat. A friend recommended this book, and they said it's such a good book because it's very meat and potatoes. And if you want to write screenplays, you've got to read this book because it breaks down screenplay structure, and it breaks down famous movies that people love, that audiences love, and what happens in those movies at what point and what made them successful. So it was that book that I read, and I highly recommend anybody read it. That allowed me to structure my screenplays properly and hit what I needed to hit on any given page. So the movie was moving along and I was hitting those sort of marks or peaks or valleys or whatever that I have to hit. So usually that's how I work. With this comedy, I happened to be visiting Wisconsin one summer. I had this funny idea of these two best friends in a marsh, and I just had this funny idea. And from that idea, I built this whole movie around that concept. And I was like, two best friends, they go on a journey. One's got a horrible boss. She's not really living the life she wants to live. The other one's so perfect. It's annoying. And then, that's how the movie came about. But that's how I work. I get a concept and I do the Save the Cat outline, and it works every time.
Cool. So Save the Cat was the name of that book?
Yeah, it's I can't remember the guy's name. Blake something. He's not alive anymore. But he wrote it, and it's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I guess my ideas generally come in different ways. Sometimes it's like I'm inspired by a concept and I want to write towards the concept. Sometimes it's just a particular phrase or something like very simple, and something like bigger grows out of that. I'd say for story wraps, it's been a lot of like we know we have a story that we want to do, so it's like the one I was just working on is like Humpty Dumpty. you know, because we're really aiming at, you know, younger kids, and we want to do stuff that's pretty simple and fun. And so we're like, okay, let's pick a nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. Okay, what's interesting about that? Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again, so they couldn't put him together. But what's a lesson we can derive from that? Well, put yourself back together. So I made a song that's like about Humpty putting himself together again. How can I tie that into rap? Well, there's the Humpty Dance by Digital Underground, so we made a beat that is kind of tied in like with the Humpty Dance, you know, the bass line. Ooh,
Yeah.
Through the
That's
Humpty
awesome.
Hump. Yeah, so we did a Humpty Dumpty song that's based on the Humpty Dance, and it's about self-care. So that's kind of how these things usually go.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so I have another question for you. So,
okay,
you guys are going to see Wes in this movie, and he's really, really, really funny in it. And why I wanted to cast Wes was because there was certain things about Wes that I thought were really special. He kind of reminded me of actors that I admired from the 40s and the 50s. He had a face to me that was very timeless. And he was really funny. Like his reel, just him on the reel, not even talking, was funny. And that is not something that's easy to do. It's actually a really hard thing to be physically funny without saying anything. So what I'm curious to know, you did some improv while you were on set. What's your sort of acting philosophy, or how do you get motivated and excited about sort of creating a character and then presenting it to people?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think in the case of this movie, it would be, it started from the page. The dialogue of the character starts to inform the voice. And once I feel like I've found the voice of the character, then improv can kind of come out of that, because I start to sort of build a backstory and start to relate the character to different people in my life that are like that character, or different parts of myself that can embody that character. I know we talked about this before, like there's a lot of bosses that I've had in my life that I channeled into this. I feel like I've had a lot of crazy bosses over the years. A lot of small business owners.
Has.
Yeah, everyone has, of course. And so I just sort of channeled that, and I think I even did a little some actual direct quotes from bosses when I was improvising. And you know, just all of that stuff. Like the best thing you can do as an actor is live an interesting life. I think that is more important than even studying acting. I mean, I think just the more you can kind of like, you know, I've worked in a donut shop, I've worked in a clothing store, I've worked as a surgical videographer. I've you know, just get weird jobs, you know. That's and you know, talk to lots of people and ask questions and stuff. I never studied acting really. I've read a lot about it, but I've only done it. I'm sorry, I should say I've done a lot of acting, but I didn't do it in school or anything like that. I kind of just always made my own videos, or I would write plays and I would act in it. And I did a lot of theater, kind of when I was in college and stuff. And basically taught myself. And I think that I'm the type of actor that sort of embodies and internalizes a lot of what the character is going through. I think that that's called method acting. But I don't consider myself a method actor. I don't like 100% like just like turn off Wes. I have to find it somewhere in myself though. I can't just like completely put on a total mask. So but that said, I'm really nothing like this character.
Well, I have to say though, what you said too about that idea of living life, I think the great writers too, they talk about that too, like all the writers that I love. They talk about how important it is to go out and do the thing that you're going to write about. So if you're going to write about a lumberjack, go out and do that. If you're going to write a detective story, go hang out with some detectives and actually like check out what it is to like be a detective. Like, it's that livingness and that doingness of the thing that makes you really good at what you do, right? But I think that's interesting that like you never studied it because you're really very much a natural. You know, you just kind of show up and you get it done, which is, you know, it's not that common. So I think that's cool.
Thanks. You know your lines and then just like be able to jump into it, I guess. And I guess thinking about it more, the way I could relate to this character is that I do own my own business. I have a production company called Tank Think. And it's very small, but I can see how when you're a boss or when you employ people that you can just sort of lose your mind, and especially like if putting myself in this character's shoes, he's very ridiculous, let's just say that, but and she's going on a weekend trip to when her relative has just died, and I'm not being very understanding of that, and I'm like, calling her and like, where's the files, like, just bothering her while she's like trying to do some grieving and soul searching. And so that was reading that, I'm just like, Jesus, this guy's kind of a jerk. But thinking about it like from his perspective, it's like he's so hyper focused on do like whatever business thing he needed to do, and it's like just finding that little kernel of like where I could relate to that.
Yeah, I think I've been talking about that a lot. Like people have been asking me about the story and they've been asking me about acting in general, right? Because I've been doing all this press for the movie. And I say to people like you when you're acting, you have to be able to take on the viewpoint of the person that you're doing. And you have to have empathy for them because you have to believe everything that they believe. That's really important. And then I've been talking about this concept, which I think is really important, of being the kind, like an actor and an artist in general has to be the kind of person who can understand every aspect of life, right? And they have to be able to get like a farmer in Nebraska who's freaking trying to get his crops going and get his cattle fed. You have to understand that guy as much as you have to understand, some, big wig on Wall Street who's got like a penthouse and 5 cars and whatever. It's your job as an artist and an actor to understand all aspects of life and have empathy and understanding of all kinds of people, and then present that to the world in a way that people can understand and have sympathy for. And if you're the protagonist, then know that you're the protagonist. But even when you're the protagonist, as the actor, you can't think that way. You can't think that you're the bad guy. You just have to like look at from the viewpoint of like, what this guy is saying is totally correct, you know? But that's always, you know, that's something that I really believe in as an actor. And I think that's what's sort of magical about actors in general, is that the power that they have is that ability to look at all aspects of life, have empathy for it, and present it. So if you're representing a certain spectrum of life, the person that's watching it feels like, yeah, that's real. You know, that's a real thing to me. That guy knows what it's like to be a farmer. That guy knows what it's like to be a stockbroker. Anyway, that was sort of a random, but I'm, you know, riffing off of what you just said about like, you know, you now have empathy for this guy, right? You're running a company, you've got deadlines, you've got things that you've got to do. And when you become a business owner, all of a sudden you can have a business owner's viewpoint. And if you don't ever do that, how are you ever going to understand what business owners go through, right?
Absolutely. That what you just said reminded me of another book that I want to mention. That's called Cassavetes on Cassavetes. That was a extremely influential book on me. John Cassavetes was an actor in Hollywood in like the 60s and 70s who was also a filmmaker. And he talks a lot about that, about like the responsibility of the representation, you know, you're representing this person, you know, and so you have to like bring everything that you have to that character. And that was one reason I brought that book up. But then another reason is because he was an actor, director, writer. And that's what you are, Ryann. And I wanted to ask you about how was the experience of that, going from writer to director to actor?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had done it before, but I had done it on a smaller scale. So I had done short films and other things like that where I put myself in them, acted in them, directed them, produced them, wrote them. But I hadn't done it on a feature film scale. And what I think I was struck by the most on this last film was how much nicer it actually is to also be the director and the actor. Because as an actor, which I did a ton of, I never really liked just being the actor. And that's, I mean, that wasn't always true, but in a lot of cases it was. Like, I'm not very good at waiting around. What I would go through as an actor sometimes is I would overthink things and I would get nervous and I'd be like, oh my God, is it time for me to be on set yet? Oh my God, am I going to hit my mark? And what I experienced was this sort of, it was actually a revelation to me, and a freedom that I gained from it, because all of a sudden I didn't have to worry about my acting. I was able very easily to go from being a director and being the actor seamlessly. And because I didn't have time to overthink anything, I was able to cry when I needed to cry and laugh when I needed to laugh. And I knew I had 1 or 2 takes to get it done. And so I was able to just get the product and get it done. You know, and for me, that just seems to be the right thing to do. And also I experienced this, which I thought was so awesome, is that because I wrote it, I was able to rewrite it as I went along. So I would hit a scene and I would go, wait, we kind of already covered that in this other scene. So I take out a line, take out a line, take out a line, rewrite something. And I was able to form and create the film as I went along and actually make it better in certain aspects and stronger because, you know, because I had the opportunity and the power to do so. And that's not something you can do on most projects because you've got to answer to the producer, you've got to answer to the writer. The writer's been paid, there's copyright issues, all of that kind of thing. So I actually really enjoyed flipping between all of those different hats. And, you know, I think it's going to be interesting to go back just to acting and other people's stuff. I think I'll be looking at it from a different viewpoint now too, having done this bigger project. But like I have another movie, right, that I'm about to do here in Florida. We're hopefully going to shoot this winter. And I'm so much looking forward to getting back on set and, you know, being able to do that again and flip in between and just create and move the story along and change it if I have to. Yeah, I highly recommend it. If you have that ability to do it, do it, you know?
Yeah. I know. I mean, I've directed most of the episodes of Story Wraps, and mostly that started as a necessity because I was literally the only one in the room filming, and I just did it all myself. And then slowly I've been able to bring in like my producers come in and help me with you know, keeping the cameras in focus and, you know, writing the intro and things like that. And but for me personally, I prefer having somebody else direct. um like I will do it, and I have done it a lot, but it's really like I love having somebody else kind of in control of it. The best situation is when you're co-directing if you're acting, because then you can have somebody help you with all that stuff, but you still have a say in it. You know, you can still
Totally.
kind of control. Yeah, like you can be like, no, I don't like that, you know. Whereas if it's like you're just acting for somebody else, it's like you might not like it, but you don't get to boss anybody around. So I'm a co-director type of guy myself.
Did anybody
but-
else have other
but-
questions that we should cover? Because I feel like
Yeah,
should
there were
we
a few
should we
more.
give them some love?
Yeah, we've already been talking 45 minutes. Let's see. Have you ever thought about playing with non-traditional story structure for future scripts or movies?
No.
Nah.
I really love high concept movies. My favorite movies that I just, you know, like I love Steven Spielberg, I love J.J. Abrams. I like what Christopher Nolan does. I love Steven Spielberg. I love Indiana Jones. I like what James Cameron does. I've got I've got this funny this high sense of quality. I live in some sort of dream world, I think, where I think that I've got, you know, $100 million budget. I don't, but I want it to look like that. But you know, I think if something came up, if I had a concept that would lend itself to something, maybe a science fiction. I mean, I've written a few science fiction movies. And what I've looked at with the science fiction, I've looked at it from the concept of this is actually 3 movies. And in that way, I could probably break it up and break up the structure and spend a bit more time dragging out certain aspects of it. But I still very much believe that you should hit certain things because I look at myself kind of what Shakespeare did. And I'm not Shakespeare, but Shakespeare had this viewpoint that you write for the audience. You're writing for the audience. You're not writing for yourself. You're writing to give the audience entertainment and bring them on a journey and entertain them. And I think that's my job and my duty as a filmmaker and as a storyteller. It's to make the audience happy. And if I can do that, then I feel like I'm, doing what I should be doing.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, just make people happy. I think I've got a strong philosophy that people should entertain for the sake of entertaining. Especially when life is tough and things are not going well. And this last year has been really rough for people with COVID and everything. I think simply making people laugh and giving them some joy and some hope and letting them sort of escape the bad things that are happening, I think that's the job of the artist. I mean, that's my personal philosophy, and I'm meeting more and more people who think that way. But it's my job to uplift the culture. And if I don't, I'm kind of like, what am I doing? Like if I can't make somebody's life better, and if I can't give them a viewpoint that's a good viewpoint and makes them love and care about humanity some more, then I'm probably not in the right medium,
Yeah.
But that's sort of right. I mean, that's my philosophy anyway.
Well, I mean, it's all art, right? And everyone has different tastes, and I think a lot of the filmmakers that you mentioned are really, mainstream, and they're beloved for the reason that they make stuff that makes people happy, and it's an escape, and it's something that they can do to sort of, make people's lives feel a little bit better. And I feel like I've grown to appreciate that more as I've gotten older. I came out of UWM, which is has a film school that's very artistic leaning, experimental, if you will, with the way that they sort of guide you. And so I kind of came out of experimental film and music videos and a lot of like non-traditional types of storytelling. And I, to me, I was like, oh, the more esoteric and hard to understand and poetic and stuff, the better for me. Because I was trying to express something internal that meant something to me, and I didn't really care what it came across to the audience. And now been out of college for about 15 years, and over time I've noticed that doing that doesn't always bring you the most success. So you have to be prepared for that if you want to do non-traditional stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's different kinds of success you can have. But the more I've gotten older, the more I've wanted to connect with people through my work. And I think, I sort of treat filmmaking and creating content like a stand-up comedian, where I'm like constantly testing the waters and seeing what people respond to, and how can I, create dialogue with what I'm doing. And I think for me, like when I really struck gold with that was, strangely enough, was with these Dr. Seuss videos. It was like, oh, like, which, it was kind of like, man, I've been doing all this stuff for all these years. And like, I feel like, I have like a strong, like local, some diehard, friends and family that love the work. But like, I had never like really broken out too much beyond the local level, a little bit here and there. But, I mean, nothing like when the Seuss videos came out. I mean, just appearing on television like daily, for a while there. And while that was like a little bit of a viral phenomenon, it was something that I'm like, okay, like I can do stuff that connects with people. I can do it. And when it turned into the show with Cadoodle, I'm like, okay, I'm going to use a lot of these similar aspects so that people are familiar with. And then always, like, when I'm like leaning on something that people are familiar with, then I'm going to do something non-traditional over here with this hand. And then eventually they'll get used to that. And then I can lean on that thing. And then I can introduce some new element over here. And so it's kind of like Tai Chi. You're just like shifting your weight back and forth. So I say non-traditional, yes, but know that you may lose people. So give them something. Give them something that they can lean on, and then you can do something over here. See what I'm saying? That's my advice.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, and I don't want to say like everything has to be high concept, because clearly I wouldn't have started my own production company and started writing my own material if I wanted to sort of follow the traditional production industry, right? Which I didn't feel like I kind of fit into anymore. That's really why I started doing my own stuff. I had reached the point where I was like, I really don't want to play parts like that. I don't agree with the messaging of that. I don't like how that represents women. And I don't want to do that just because it's degrading to women. There were a lot of things that were occurring and happening at the same time. I think ultimately, what's the most important thing for anybody who's sort of trying to get their foot in the door or get their viewpoint out there, create great content, is I believe strongly in just good storytelling. If you believe in your story and it comes from a personal place, and I mean, for Mags and Julie, my thing was I was missing comedy that had heart personally. So I get excited to watch a movie. I get super excited. And I'd be like, oh my God, there's, 3 female comedians and I love them and they're so funny. And then I would watch the movie and I was let down by it. And I'd be like, that didn't have any point at all. There was no lesson in it. It was just empty. Right. And so rather than just complaining about the content that was coming out, I said, well, I should write a comedy with some heart. And that's what I did. And then I made it. So, and the thing that I've been finding too, which I think is really interesting, I'm sure you're going to experience this, the more you talk about these things with other people, the more other people say to you, yeah, you're right. I do miss comedy with heart. I do miss things that I can watch with my kids and it's something horrible is not going to happen, that they can't watch the movie, or just watching something with my girlfriend and laughing and sort of escaping a little bit. So I always think about story, find the story, tell a great story. And I think if you do anything with that as the sort of fundamental, then you will find an audience for it. I mean, there's billions of people on this planet and they all want content. So tell good stories,
Yeah. Well, I think we're wrapping up at 5 here, I believe. So how can people support you and support the film?
Well, the film comes out on the 24th. They're sort of promoting it as like a Thanksgiving release, but it comes out on the 24th in the US and Canada. And right now, really what we're trying to do as much as we can is get pre-orders for the film. So people can go to Apple TV and they can go to iTunes and they can pre-order the movie. And what those pre-orders does, the purpose of the pre-orders is that it iTunes, the platform, which is sort of sets the standard for VOD platforms, will actually highlight the movie. So they'll put it in new and noteworthy, or they'll highlight in their comedy movies. And so that's what we're sort of asking people to do right now. If you can, go pre-order the movie before it comes out next week. And then, and then also next week, if you, for some reason, you don't have Apple TV, you don't have the iTunes app, it's going to be everywhere. It'll be on Amazon Prime. It's going to be on YouTube Plus, like you mentioned. It's going to be on PlayStation, Frontier, cable networks, really pretty much all VOD platforms. So go out there and watch it, and get your friends together and get your family together and go celebrate Wisconsin. Oh, and by the way, guys, I just talked to a film critic yesterday. I didn't know he was a film critic, but he is. And he watched the movie and he loved it. And he said what he loved so much about it, and I think this is a real testament to Wisconsin, and I'm really glad that I made a movie in Wisconsin, is that he really felt like he understood Wisconsin. And he said it was really awesome to see Wisconsin in a film, and he said it was beautiful, and he didn't know it looked like that. And he, and he also said he's never seen Wisconsin in a movie in that way. And he also hasn't seen a lot of Wisconsin movies, right? So I thought that was really cool. So, for all of our Wisconsin friends, I think you're going to be really happy to see our beautiful state highlighted,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I'm definitely ready for that. Seen enough Wisconsin movies. I won't call them out, but there was a recent Wisconsin movie that was not shot in Wisconsin, was not shot with any Wisconsin people. It was just I believe it was shot in Atlanta or near Atlanta, Georgia, out in more in the country. But it was like, man, there's so much beauty here that we could be showcasing in films, but we got to get those tax incentives for crews to come out here and shoot. So that was the big item of discussion a few years back, I remember. I don't know where that's at though, because I don't really pay attention.
Well, and no, too, it's not, Wisconsin isn't expensive. It's not an expensive place to shoot. There aren't permits. It's very easy to pull favors there. People are still very excited about filmmaking there. So if you say to them, hey, I need this kind of space, or I need to do this kind of thing, they will come out and help you and support you to figure it out. I mean, I didn't have to pull any permits for anything. I was able to shoot in the 3rd Ward. We just told the police department that we were going to be there. I was able to shoot all around Sheboygan. It's a very easy place to shoot a film. So if anybody's thinking about that, and they need a Wisconsin kind of atmosphere, right? Historic cities, main streets, beautiful farmland, hills in the north, up north vibe, really everything that you need for sort of a character-driven film is in the state,
Mm-hmm. And we have some good urban areas in Milwaukee and, well, really just Milwaukee. I guess maybe Madison a little bit too has some. It's like smaller big city vibe. Anyway,
yep.
I think we're wrapping up here. But I would just also want to shout out my show, Story Wraps. It's on Cadoodle TV, and it's also on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Wes Tank. It's just my name. And yeah, check me out especially if you have little ones running around. I think.
Well, and even if you don't have little ones, I watch it because they're so entertaining. I mean, they really are. They're really super entertaining, and they make you feel good when you watch them. You're just like, life is amazing. So
that's the goal. That's really the goal. I try to bring a little bit of joy into the world right now. That's like my ultimate goal. Is just it's a really weird time right now, and but it's going to be all right. Like, I think we're going to pull through. Stay positive.
Yeah, and I think if we can help other artists create more great content, then let's do that, you know? More joy in the world, like you're saying, more entertainment, more comedy. Man, we need our comedians back, you know, like our George Carlins and our George Burns and our Bob Hopes and we need some more comedians out there who can just make fun of themselves, make fun of other people, and so we can all lighten up a little bit, because seriously, we all have so much more in common than we know. And when you really just sit down and communicate with people, you find that, you know, reality. And, you know, that's what life's all about. You know, we're never going to always be on the same page about every subject. I literally have never met a single person who has the same viewpoints as the person sitting next to them. It doesn't exist. So the only thing that you can do is sit down and communicate with people and get their story and, you know, make them feel good about who they are and what they think and help them reach that next goal, whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Well,
Okay,
Ryan,
guys, well,
thanks so much.
Should we wrap it up? Yeah, it was so good talking to you, Wes. It's always awesome talking to you. And
same.
and also, if people ever want to reach out, all my social media is actually run by me. So I'm on Instagram at Ryann Liebl is real. The Instagram page is Mags and Julie Movie. And then I'm on Facebook at Ryann Liebl, and then Mags and Julie go on a road trip on Facebook. And I actually run those pages. So if you ever have questions about filmmaking, something that you're trying to achieve, if you want to ask me questions about Los Angeles, just reach out and I will do my best in a timely manner to get back to you and help you.
Cool. I'm at Wes_Tank on socials. Hit me up.
Okay, bye guys.
Okay. That's it, I guess. Okay.
Okay, so you want to open a bar. No, it's not a bar. It's a social space. Okay, well, it's a club. Well, it's a club, but it's really about artists and about engaging in the community. We want a screening room. But we also would love a bar and a coffee area where people could hang out. It would be great if we had tenants involved, but it would also be great if we had an upper space where people could work and flow together. We want to incubate, we want to encourage and socialize. A place where you can just relax between meetings or obligations. A place where you can have an idea and say, hey, you know, it'd be great if we could do this or we could do that. That's what this space is all about.